Captain Marcus Chen stood at the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle, watching the massive alien structure grow larger as they approached. The Zephyrian Empire's capital ship was a thing of beauty and terror. Crystalline spires twisted through space like frozen lightning, each surface reflecting the light of distant stars in patterns that hurt to look at directly. First contact with the Zephyrian Empire, his aide, Lieutenant Sarah Park, said quietly beside him. After 300 years of human expansion into space, we finally meet someone who doesn't want to blast us out of existence immediately. Marcus nodded, though his stomach churned with nervous energy. The Zephyrians had been observing human colonies for decades before making contact. Their message had been simple. Your species intrigues us. Send representatives. No threats, no demands, just curiosity. It was more than humanity had received from any other alien species they'd encountered. The shuttle's communication system crackled to life. Human vessel, you are cleared for docking Bay 7. Please prepare for atmospheric transition. The voice was melodic, almost musical, with undertones that seemed to vibrate through the hull itself. Marcus had studied the few recordings of Zephyrian speech they possessed, but hearing it live was entirely different. There was something ancient in that voice, something that spoke of civilizations that had existed when humans were still discovering fire. As they docked, Marcus checked his diplomatic pouch one final time. Inside was humanity's gift to the Empress, something that had caused heated debates in the Earth Council for months. Some called it brilliant. Others called it suicide. Marcus wasn't sure which group was right. The docking bay was enormous, easily capable of holding a dozen human ships. The atmosphere shimmered with an odd quality, and Marcus realized the air itself was somehow different here. Not just the composition, but the way light moved through it. Everything had a dreamlike quality that made him question whether he was still awake. 3 Zephyrians waited for them at the shuttle's exit. Marcus had seen images before, but nothing had prepared him for meeting them in person. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with elongated limbs that moved with liquid grace. Their skin appeared to be made of living crystal, shifting between deep blue and silver as they breathed. Most striking were their eyes, large, multifaceted like insects, but with an intelligence that was unmistakably sapient. Welcome, humans, the center figure spoke, its voice creating harmonics in the air around them. I am Commander Zixith. The Empress awaits your presence. Marcus stepped forward, feeling impossibly small. I am Captain Marcus Chen, representing the United Earth Government. We are honored by this invitation. Zixith tilted its head in what might have been acknowledgement. Your species is unexpected. We have observed many civilizations across the galaxy. Most follow predictable patterns. Humans do not. As they walked through corridors that seemed to grow and shift around them, Marcus caught glimpses of other Zephyrians going about their business. Some tended to what looked like living machinery, organic computers that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Others worked with materials that defied physics as Marcus understood it, shaping metal and crystal with their bare hands. Your technology is remarkable, Sarah whispered, struggling to keep her scientific curiosity in check. Technology. Zixith's laugh was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. This is not technology as you understand it. We discovered long ago that the universe responds to will and intention far more readily than to crude mechanical force. What you call impossible, we call Tuesday. They entered a vast chamber that seemed to stretch infinitely upward. At its center, on a throne that appeared to be carved from a single massive gem, sat the Empress of the Zephyrian Empire. She was larger than the others, her crystalline skin shifting through the entire visible spectrum as emotions played across her features. When she looked at Marcus, he felt as though she was reading not just his thoughts, but the thoughts of everyone he'd ever met. So, the Empress said, her voice filling the chamber without seeming loud, these are the humans who refuse to follow the rules of galactic civilization. Marcus straightened, drawing on every bit of diplomatic training he'd ever received. Your Majesty, we come seeking peaceful relations between our peoples. We understand that we may seem chaotic to more established civilizations. Chaotic? The Empress leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes glittering with what might have been amusement. You call it chaos. We call it fascinating. Do you know what most species do when they achieve spaceflight? Marcus shook his head. They build ships that are logical, efficient, designed by committee and tested extensively. They follow safe trade routes and establish colonies on planets that are easily habitable. They create governments that prioritize stability above all else. She gestured with one elongated hand. You humans? You build ships that shouldn't work but somehow do. You establish colonies on planets that actively try to kill you. You create art that defies logic and music that makes no mathematical sense but somehow moves the soul. The Empress stood, her impressive height making the throne room feel even more vast. Most species become predictable within a few centuries of achieving interstellar travel. They optimize everything until they lose whatever spark made them worth knowing in the first place. But humans, you've been traveling between stars for 300 years and you're still completely unpredictable. Marcus felt a moment of opportunity. Your Majesty, I've brought a gift from humanity to the Zephyrian Empire, something that represents who we are as a species. The Empress's expression shifted, colors flowing across her crystalline features like aurora. A gift? How quaint. What could humans possibly offer to a civilization that has existed for over 10,000 years? Marcus reached into his diplomatic pouch, his fingers closing around the small object inside. This was the moment everything depended on. The Earth Council had debated for months about what gift could possibly impress a species that seemed to have transcended the need for material possession, something that we believe represents the best of humanity, Marcus said, pulling the object from the pouch. Something that shows why we might be worth knowing despite our chaos. The Empress stepped closer, her massive form moving with surprising grace. Show me this gift of yours, human. Show me what makes your species believe it has something to offer the galaxy. Marcus held up the object and the entire throne room fell silent. Even the organic machinery seemed to pause in its eternal humming. The gift was small, seemingly insignificant, but Marcus knew that sometimes the smallest things carried the greatest meaning. The real test was about to begin. Marcus held the object carefully in his palm, watching as the Empress's multifaceted eyes focused on it with intense curiosity. The gift was a simple wooden music box, no larger than his fist, with intricate carvings depicting scenes of human life. Children playing, families gathering, lovers dancing under starlight. This is your offering? The Empress asked, her voice carrying notes of confusion. The other Zephyrians in the chamber shifted slightly, their crystalline forms resonating with harmonic frequencies that suggested surprise. A primitive mechanical device? Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. Yes, Your Majesty, but please allow me to explain its significance. With careful fingers, he wound the small key on the side of the music box. The mechanism engaged with tiny clicks that seemed absurdly loud in the vast chamber. Then as the lid opened, a simple melody began to play, Greensleeves, an ancient human ballad that had survived wars, disasters, and the long journey to the stars. The effect on the assembled Zephyrians was immediate and startling. Their crystalline skin began to resonate with the music, creating harmonics that transformed the simple melody into something far more complex. The Empress herself went completely still, her colors shifting to deep purples and golds as the music continued. This sound, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the tinkling melody. It speaks of loss, longing, but also hope. The song is over 600 years old, Marcus explained, his voice steady despite his nervousness. It was written during a time of great upheaval in human history. Wars were tearing our planet apart, and people were dying by the millions. Yet someone took the time to write this simple song about love and loss. The music box continued its gentle tune, the wooden figurines inside beginning their eternal dance. A man and woman spinning slowly around each other, never quite touching but never truly apart. We could have brought you examples of our most advanced technology, Sarah added, stepping forward. Quantum computers, fusion reactors, ships that can cross interstellar distances. But those things don't truly represent who we are. The Empress moved closer, her massive form bending down to examine the music box more closely. Her crystalline fingers hovered just above it, not quite touching but somehow interacting with the object in ways that defied Marcus's understanding. The materials, she murmured. This wood, it came from a living tree, did it not? A tree that grew slowly year by year, drawing life from soil and sunlight. From Earth, Marcus confirmed. From an oak tree that was already 300 years old when this song was first written. The craftsman who made this music box chose that wood specifically. He said old wood remembers the songs the wind sang through its branches. The Empress's colors shifted again, cycling through spectrums Marcus didn't have names for. And the song itself? You said it speaks of human emotions? It tells the story of a knight who loved a lady, but could never be with her, Marcus explained. It's about the pain of love that can't be fulfilled, but also about the beauty of loving something purely, without expectation of reward. Fascinating. The Empress straightened to her full height, her eyes never leaving the music box. Most species, when they achieve technological sophistication, abandon such primitive expressions. They view emotion as inefficient, art as wasteful, yet humans have carried this simple song across centuries and light years. Commander Zixth approached, its own crystalline form resonating softly with the music's harmonics. Empress, I have studied human history extensively. They are indeed unique in this regard. While most civilizations optimize away their cultural diversity, humans seem to deliberately preserve it. Tell me more about this preservation, the Empress commanded, settling back onto her throne without taking her eyes off the music box. Marcus felt a surge of confidence. This was going better than he'd dared hope. Your Majesty, when humans first left Earth, there was great debate about what to take with us to the stars. We could only carry so much weight, so much data. Many argued we should focus only on practical knowledge, science, engineering, medicine. A logical approach, the Empress acknowledged. But we didn't choose logic alone, Sarah continued. Every colony ship carried what we called a cultural archive. Music, literature, art, recipes for food that served no nutritional purpose beyond comfort, stories that had no practical value except to remind us who we were. The music box's melody was winding down now, the tiny dancers slowing their eternal waltz. But the harmonics created by the Zephyrian's resonance continued, transforming the chamber into a vast musical instrument. On the colony world of New Beijing, Marcus said, settlers spent 3 days of their first week building a concert hall, even though they had barely enough shelter for themselves. On Kepler's Hope, the first structure they built after the essential survival shelters was a library. Not for technical manuals, but for poetry and fiction. This is inefficient behavior, observed another Zephyrian advisor. Resources squandered on non-essential activities. That's what the hegemony said, Marcus replied, referring to the militant alien empire that had declared war on humanity 50 years earlier. They couldn't understand why we wasted resources on art and music when we could be building weapons and defenses. They saw our cultural preservation as weakness. The Empress's colors shifted to deep blue. What Marcus had learned indicated intense concentration. And yet you defeated the hegemony despite their superior numbers and technology. Because art isn't weakness, Sarah said passionately. It's the reason we fight. The hegemony couldn't understand why human soldiers would risk their lives to save an enemy child, or why our pilots would sacrifice strategic advantages to avoid destroying cultural sites. They thought we were being irrational. The music box's melody finally ended, the last note hanging in the air as the Zephyrian's harmonic resonance slowly faded. In the sudden quiet, Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. They were right about one thing, Marcus said quietly. We are irrational. We make decisions based on emotion as much as logic. We preserve beautiful but useless things. We tell stories that have no practical purpose. We create art that serves no function except to make us feel something. The Empress was silent for a long moment, her crystalline form cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before. When she finally spoke, her voice carried notes of something that might have been wonder. In 10,000 years of existence, she said slowly, the Zephyrian Empire has encountered 847 different sapient species. Of those, 846 followed predictable patterns of development. They achieved technological sophistication and then optimized away everything that made them unique. They became efficient, logical, and utterly forgettable. She leaned forward, her massive presence somehow feeling less intimidating and more curious. But you humans, she continued, you seem determined to remain beautifully, chaotically, impossibly inefficient. And somehow that inefficiency makes you stronger, not weaker. Marcus felt a spark of hope, but he knew the real test was still coming. The Empress had shown interest, even admiration, but that didn't guarantee an alliance. The Zephyrian Empire was ancient and powerful, with technologies that seemed like magic to human eyes. What could humanity possibly offer in return for their friendship? The answer to that question would determine not just the fate of this diplomatic mission, but possibly the future of humanity itself. The Empress stood motionless for what felt like an eternity, her crystalline form cycling through colors that seemed to express emotions Marcus couldn't begin to interpret. The music box sat silent in his palm, but somehow its presence continued to fill the vast chamber with significance. "May I?" the Empress asked, extending one elongated crystalline hand toward the music box. Marcus hesitated for just a moment. Earth's xenobiologists had warned that Zephyrian touch could alter matter at the molecular level. But diplomacy sometimes required leaps of faith. He stepped forward and carefully placed the music box in her palm. The moment her crystalline fingers closed around the wooden box, something extraordinary happened. The entire chamber began to resonate, not with sound but with something deeper. Emotions, memories, experiences flowing like visible currents through the air. Marcus could see fragments of human history flickering around them. A mother singing lullabies to her child during an air raid. Soldiers sharing photographs from home before a battle. Colonists playing music around a campfire on an alien world. Remarkable. The Empress breathed, her voice carrying harmonics of awe. The object has absorbed echoes of every moment it has witnessed. I can feel the hands that carved this wood, the song's journey through your history, the love and loss and hope that has surrounded it. She lifted the music box closer to her multifaceted eyes, examining it with the intensity of a scientist and the reverence of a pilgrim. But there is something else here. Something I do not understand. Commander Zixith approached, its own form shimmering with curiosity. "What do you sense, Empress?" "This object was not chosen randomly," she said, her gaze shifting to Marcus. "There is intent here, purpose beyond mere diplomacy. Human, explain to me why you brought this specific gift." Marcus took a deep breath, knowing that his next words could change everything. "Your Majesty, we brought this because it represents something that your empire has lost, something that all advanced civilizations seem to lose." The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Several Zephyrian advisors shifted uneasily, their forms resonating with warning harmonics. To suggest that the mighty Zephyrian empire had lost anything was dangerously close to insult, but the Empress held up a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Continue." 3 years ago, Marcus said, our explorers discovered a dead world on the edge of Zephyrian space. The ruins there were magnificent. Cities that defied gravity, art that moved and lived and breathed. But the world was empty. The civilization that built those wonders had simply vanished. Sarah stepped forward, pulling out a small holographic projector. With the Empress's permission, she activated it, showing images of the ruined world. The holographic cities were indeed breathtaking. Crystalline structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, flowing forms that captured and redirected starlight in patterns of impossible beauty. "The Veltar," the Empress said quietly, her colors shifting to muted grays and blues. "They were our predecessors in this region of space, masters of biological engineering and living architecture. What happened to them?" Marcus asked gently. The Empress was quiet for a long moment, her form growing still. "They achieved perfection. Their technology advanced to the point where they could manipulate matter and energy with pure thought. They eliminated disease, hunger, even death itself. They optimized their society until it functioned with perfect efficiency. And then, they became bored." The words carried a weight of sadness that seemed to echo through the chamber. Perfect efficiency, perfect logic, perfect order. There were no more challenges, no more mysteries, no more reasons to strive or dream or create. They simply stopped. Some departed for other dimensions. Others transcended physical existence entirely. A few chose to return to the cosmic dust from which they came. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. They optimized away their humanity, their purpose for existing. "An apt comparison," the Empress acknowledged. "And this is why your gift troubles me, human. Because I can see the same path stretching before the Zephyrian Empire. We have ruled this galaxy for 10 millennia. Our technology borders on the magical. Our society functions with near-perfect efficiency. We have solved every problem, answered every question, achieved every goal we set for ourselves." She held up the music box, its simple wooden form looking impossibly fragile in her crystalline grasp. "Until now, I believed that transcendence, becoming beings of pure thought and energy, was the natural evolution of any sufficiently advanced species. But this simple object suggests another possibility, Which is? Commander Zixith asked, its voice carrying notes of fascination and concern. That perhaps advancement without purpose is not evolution at all, but extinction in disguise. The Empress turned her attention back to Marcus. Your species has something we have not encountered before. You advance technologically while stubbornly refusing to abandon your inefficiencies. You could have optimized your cultures into uniformity, but instead you preserve diversity. You could have eliminated art and music as wasteful, but instead you carry them to the stars. Sarah cleared her throat respectfully. Your Majesty, if I may, what we've observed of Zephyrian culture suggests you haven't lost your capacity for beauty. This ship, your architecture, even the way you speak, it's all magnificent art. Art, yes, the Empress agreed. But safe art, predictable art, art that follows patterns established millennia ago. When did a Zephyrian last create something that surprised even themselves? When did we last produce music that made us weep? Or stories that changed how we see the universe? The challenge in her words was clear, and Marcus realized they had reached the crucial moment. Your Majesty, that's exactly why humanity might be valuable to the Zephyrian Empire. Not for our technology, which is primitive compared to yours. Not for our military might, which is insignificant against your forces. But for our chaos. Explain. Marcus gestured to the music box in her hands. That song has been sung by millions of humans across hundreds of worlds. But each singer changes it slightly. Different tempo, different emphasis, small variations that accumulate over time. The song evolves, stays alive, remains unpredictable. In human colonies, Sarah added, we've seen local variations develop within decades. New Beijing's version of Greensleeves incorporates harmonies influenced by the wind patterns on their world. Kepler's Hope adds percussion that mimics the sound of their twin suns. The song stays the same but constantly changes. The Empress's colors shifted through spectrums Marcus was beginning to recognize as deep contemplation. You suggest that chaos, inefficiency, is necessary for continued growth and creativity. We suggest that perfection is another word for death, Marcus said boldly. The moment you stop changing, stop struggling, stop creating something new, that's the moment you begin to fade away like the Veltar. The chamber fell silent except for the ambient humming of organic machinery. The Empress stood like a statue, the music box cradled in her hands, her form cycling through colors that suggested an internal struggle of cosmic proportions. Finally, she spoke. If this is true, if chaos and inefficiency are necessary for continued existence, then humanity offers something no other species has provided in 10,000 years. Which is? The Empress's form suddenly blazed with brilliant light, colors cascading across her crystalline skin like aurora on a cosmic scale. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics of excitement, fear, and something that might have been hope. The chance to remain alive. The Empress's words hung in the air like a challenge to the cosmos itself. Around the chamber, the assembled Zephyrian nobles and advisors began to resonate with frequencies that spoke of shock, fear, and something that might have been excitement. Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented, an immortal civilization confronting its own mortality. Your Majesty, Commander Zixith said carefully, surely you do not mean to suggest that the Empire is dying? The Empress turned to face her advisor, the music box still cradled in her crystalline hands. When did you last feel surprised, Zixith? When did any of us last experience something genuinely unexpected? The question seemed to ripple through the assembled Zephyrians like a stone thrown into still water. Marcus watched as their crystalline forms shifted through muted colors, what he was beginning to recognize as uncertainty and introspection. We have achieved much, one of the advisors said slowly. The great work progresses. The galaxy remains stable under our guidance. The great work, the Empress repeated, her voice carrying notes of what might have been bitter amusement. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors began a project to bring order and prosperity to the galaxy. We have succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. War is nearly extinct. Poverty has been eliminated on every world under our protection. Disease is a historical curiosity. She moved across the chamber with fluid grace, her massive form somehow managing to convey both power and melancholy. But when did success become stagnation? When did order become emptiness? Marcus felt the weight of the moment. He was witnessing something extraordinary. A civilization that had ruled the galaxy for millennia was questioning the very foundations of its existence. But he also sensed opportunity. This was exactly the opening humanity needed. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "perhaps the question isn't whether chaos is necessary for life, but whether different types of order can coexist." The Empress turned her multifaceted gaze upon him. "Elaborate." "The Zephyrian Empire has created order through perfection," Sarah explained, stepping forward. "Every system optimized, every problem solved, every variable accounted for. It's magnificent, but it's also complete." "Whereas human civilization creates order through balance," Marcus continued. "We maintain stability not by eliminating chaos, but by managing it. Our governments are inefficient by design. They argue, they compromise. They change course when new information emerges." "This sounds like weakness," observed one of the advisors. "It is weakness," Marcus agreed, "and also strength. Because when one approach fails, we have dozens of others to try. When one world develops a problem, other worlds develop different solutions. We're not optimized, but we're adaptable." The Empress had returned to her throne, but instead of sitting, she stood before it, the music box held like a precious relic. "Show me," she commanded. "Demonstrate this human adaptability." Marcus felt a moment of panic. How do you demonstrate an entire civilization's approach to existence in a few minutes? But then he remembered something from his briefings, a story that perfectly illustrated the difference between human and alien thinking. "Your Majesty, 3 years ago, the human colony on Ross 47b faced extinction. The planet's star began exhibiting unusual solar flare activity that would have sterilized the surface within months. A tragic but not uncommon scenario," Commander Zixth observed. "The logical solution would be evacuation." "That's exactly what the hegemony advised when we asked for their help," Sarah said. "Evacuate the population, write off the infrastructure, start over elsewhere. Clean, efficient, minimal loss of life." "But humans rarely choose the logical solution," Marcus continued. "Instead, the colonists decided to try something that had never been attempted before. They would move their entire city underground and use the planet's geothermal energy to power a massive electromagnetic shield. The assembled Zephyrians' forms flickered with what Marcus recognized as interest. The Empress leaned forward slightly. "The plan was insane," Marcus admitted. "It required technologies that barely existed, materials they didn't have, and coordination between dozens of different colonial governments. The engineering challenges alone should have made it impossible. Yet they succeeded," the Empress asked. "They did more than succeed," Sarah said with obvious pride. "Not only did they save their colony, but the shielding technology they developed has since been adapted to protect 17 other worlds from various stellar phenomena. A desperate, inefficient, chaotic solution became one of humanity's most important innovations." "But that's just one example," Marcus continued. "What makes it truly human is what happened next. The colonists could have kept their new underground city perfectly organized and efficient. Instead, they began expanding it in ways that served no practical purpose. Art galleries carved into living rock, concert halls that use geothermal acoustics to create music impossible on the surface, gardens that exist purely because they're beautiful." The Empress was silent for a long moment, her colors cycling through spectrums Marcus had never seen before. When she spoke, her voice carried undertones of something that might have been wonder. "You saved a world and then made it more chaotic, not less." "We made it more alive," Marcus corrected gently. "Which brings us to our proposal." Every Zephyrian in the chamber suddenly focused their attention on him with laser intensity. Marcus felt like a mouse surrounded by very polite, very interested cats. "Humanity would like to propose a cultural exchange program with the Zephyrian Empire," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "Not just diplomatic contact, but genuine collaboration." "What form would this collaboration take?" the Empress asked. Sarah activated her holographic projector again, showing images of human colonies and cities. "Joint settlements. Zephyrian and human families living together, working together, creating together. Your people could teach us about advanced technologies and cosmic perspectives. Our people could share our approaches to art, innovation, and adaptation. You would contaminate Zephyrian purity with human chaos," one advisor said, though his tone suggested curiosity rather than condemnation. "We would share human chaos with Zephyrian perfection," Marcus replied. Imagine Zephyrian biotechnology guided by human creativity. Picture Zephyrian engineering enhanced by human improvisation. Consider Zephyrian philosophy enriched by human storytelling. The Empress stepped closer, her massive presence somehow feeling less intimidating than before. And what would prevent human chaos from simply destroying Zephyrian order? The same thing that prevents Zephyrian order from crushing human chaos, Sarah answered. Balance. Mutual respect. The understanding that both approaches have value. Marcus pulled out a datapad containing detailed proposals that had taken the Earth Council months to develop. We're not asking for political alliance or military cooperation, Your Majesty. We're offering something much more valuable, the chance for both our civilizations to grow in ways neither could achieve alone. The Empress took the datapad with one hand while continuing to hold the music box with the other. As she scanned the information, her colors shifted through patterns that suggested deep consideration. This proposal, she said slowly, is either brilliant or catastrophic. Possibly both. All the best human ideas are, Marcus admitted. The Empress's laugh was like crystal chimes in a gentle wind. Yes, I am beginning to understand that about your species. She looked up from the datapad, her multifaceted eyes meeting Marcus's gaze directly. You have given me much to consider, Captain Chen. But before I can make such a momentous decision, I must ask you one final question. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Everything hinged on whatever she was about to ask. Ask away, Your Majesty. The Empress held up the music box, its simple wooden form catching the light of the chamber's bioluminescent panels. This gift of yours, it tells a story of love that cannot be fulfilled, beauty that exists despite pain, hope that persists in the face of impossibility. Is that truly what humanity believes defines existence? Marcus met her gaze without flinching. Yes, Your Majesty. We believe that life isn't about avoiding pain or achieving perfection. It's about finding beauty and meaning in the midst of chaos, love in the face of loss, and hope despite all evidence to the contrary. Even when logic suggests that such hope is futile, especially then. The Empress's form blazed with light so brilliant that Marcus had to shield his eyes. When the radiance faded, she was smiling, an expression that transformed her alien features into something universally recognizable as joy. Then perhaps, she said, it is time for the Zephyrian Empire to learn how to hope again. The Empress's declaration sent shockwaves through the assembled Zephyrians. Their crystalline forms flickered with rapid color changes that Marcus was beginning to recognize as intense emotional turmoil. Some resonated with harmonics of excitement, others with frequencies that spoke of fear and uncertainty. Your Majesty, one of the older advisors said, his voice carrying undertones of alarm. Surely you do not mean to approve this proposal without extensive deliberation. The implications for the Empire are exactly why we must act. The Empress cut him off, her colors shifting to the deep purples Marcus associated with authority. Advisor Kethra, when did you last feel genuine excitement about the future? The elder Zephyrian's form dimmed noticeably. The completion of the 7th ring station was quite satisfying, Majesty. That was 2 centuries ago. Satisfying, the Empress repeated. Not exciting, not inspiring, satisfying. She turned to address the entire assembly. When did any of us last create something that surprised even ourselves? When did we last solve a problem that seemed impossible? When did we last feel truly alive? The chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of biological machinery. Marcus watched as the assembled Zephyrians struggled with questions they had apparently never considered before. Commander Zixith stepped forward, its form cycling through colors of deep contemplation. If I may, Majesty, there is wisdom in the human approach. Their chaotic methods produced the solution to the quantum resonance cascade that our finest minds had deemed impossible. The cascade solution? Several advisors perked up with interest. Marcus sensed an opportunity. Your Majesty, he said, if I may elaborate on Commander Zixith's observation, 3 months ago, one of our research stations accidentally created a quantum resonance cascade that threatened to tear holes in local spacetime. Our scientists were completely out of their depth. Sarah pulled up holographic data showing the crisis. Standard physics said the cascade was unstoppable. Every simulation we ran showed total annihilation of everything within 50 light years. But instead of evacuating and accepting the loss, Marcus continued, Our people did something typically human. They threw together a team of scientists, artists, musicians, and even a few comedians. Comedians? Advisor Kethra's form flickered with confusion. For a quantum physics crisis? The comedians were there to keep everyone from going insane with stress, Sarah explained. But one of them, a woman named Dana Rodriguez, made a joke about the cascade singing itself to death. That random comment inspired our quantum engineer to try something completely irrational. The Empress leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with interest. Continue. Instead of trying to stop the cascade with opposing forces, they decided to harmonize with it, Marcus said. They built resonance generators that matched the cascade's frequency and gradually shifted it until the entire phenomenon collapsed into stable space-time. The solution required technologies that shouldn't work together, Sarah added, engineering that violated 3 different safety protocols, and mathematical models that one of our physicists described as aggressively impossible. Yet it worked, Commander Zixith observed. Our analysis of the data confirmed that the human solution was not only effective, but revealed new principles of quantum harmonics that have applications far beyond crisis management. The Empress stood, her massive form radiating excitement. This is exactly what I mean. Zephyrian scientists would have calculated the optimal evacuation procedures and written scholarly papers about the phenomenon. Humans created a solution that defied logic and opened entirely new fields of study. But Your Majesty, Advisor Kethra protested, their methods are so unpredictable. What if their chaos disrupts our carefully maintained order? Marcus felt the crucial moment approaching. The Empress was clearly intrigued, but the resistance from her advisors could still derail everything. He needed to address their concerns directly. Advisor Kethra raises an excellent point, he said, earning surprised looks from both humans and Zephyrians. Chaos can be destructive if it's uncontrolled. That's why we're not proposing to simply introduce random disorder into Zephyrian society. He activated his own datapad, showing carefully designed proposals. Our plan involves controlled cultural exchange zones, specially designed communities where Zephyrian order and human chaos can interact safely. Think of it as... Sarah paused, searching for the right analogy. Like a laboratory where 2 different approaches to existence can learn from each other, without either one destroying the other. The Empress moved closer to examine the data, her colors shifting through spectrums of deep consideration. These community designs, they incorporate both Zephyrian architectural principles and human adaptive elements. Each settlement would have 3 zones, Marcus explained. Zephyrian spaces designed for optimal efficiency and contemplation, human spaces designed for creativity and spontaneous interaction, and hybrid spaces where both cultures can experiment with new approaches. The hybrid zones are the key, Sarah added. Places where Zephyrian precision can guide human innovation and human creativity can inspire Zephyrian art. Commander Zixith studied the projections with obvious fascination. This central area here, what is its purpose? Community workshops, Marcus replied. Spaces designed for collaborative projects. Imagine Zephyrian bioengineering guided by human artistic vision. Picture human musicians working with Zephyrian harmonic specialists to create entirely new forms of music. The Empress's form began to glow with increasing intensity. And this area? Chaos Gardens, Sarah said with a slight smile. Spaces deliberately designed to be unpredictable. Natural areas where controlled randomness can flourish, weather patterns that change daily, plant life that evolves in real time, water features that follow no set pattern. You want to build gardens of chaos, Advisor Kethra said, his tone suggesting he wasn't sure whether to be horrified or intrigued. We want to build gardens of possibility, Marcus corrected, places where new ideas can grow wild before being cultivated into useful innovations. The Empress had returned to studying the music box in her hands, her colors cycling through patterns Marcus had never seen before. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics of excitement and apprehension. This proposal would change everything. 10,000 years of Zephyrian civilization, and you suggest we abandon our fundamental approach to existence. Not abandon, Marcus said quickly. Expand. Your civilization's achievements are miraculous. We're not asking you to give up what makes you great. We're offering to help you become even greater. But change is risk, she continued. What if human chaos proves incompatible with Zephyrian order? What if instead of enhanced civilization, we create something that satisfies neither human nor Zephyrian needs? Sarah stepped forward, her expression earnest. Your Majesty, with respect, isn't that exactly the kind of uncertainty that makes life worth living? The chance that something wonderful might happen, even if something terrible might happen instead? The Empress looked up from the music box, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the chamber's bioluminescent lighting. You ask us to gamble the stability of an empire that has endured for millennia. We ask you to choose growth over stagnation, Marcus replied. We ask you to choose the chance of something amazing over the certainty of slow decay. The chamber fell silent as the Empress contemplated their words. Marcus could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. This moment would determine not just the fate of the cultural exchange program, but the future relationship between humanity and one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Finally, the Empress spoke, her voice carrying the authority of 10,000 years of rule and the uncertainty of someone contemplating fundamental change. You have given me a gift that has shaken the foundations of everything I believed about existence, she said, holding up the music box. You have shown me that perfection might be another word for death, and that chaos might be another word for life. She paused, her form cycling through every color Marcus had ever seen a Zephyrian display. Now I must decide whether the Zephyrian Empire is brave enough to choose life over perfection. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, suspended between order and chaos, between safety and possibility, between the known past and the unknowable future. The Empress stood in contemplative silence for what felt like an eternity. The music box cradled in her crystalline hands while her form cycled through colors that spoke of an internal struggle of cosmic proportions. Around the chamber, the assembled Zephyrian nobles and advisors waited with the patience of a species that measured time in millennia. Finally, she moved to the center of the chamber, her massive presence commanding absolute attention. In all my years of rule, she began, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate through the very structure of the ship. I have made decisions that affected the fate of billions. I have approved the construction of stellar megastructures, sanctioned the relocation of entire civilizations, and guided the evolution of technologies that border on the miraculous. She lifted the music box, its simple wooden form catching the bioluminescent light of the chamber. But this decision may be the most important I have ever faced, because it is not about managing what exists. It is about choosing what we might become. Marcus felt his heart pounding as he realized the Empress was about to announce her verdict. Beside him, Sarah stood rigid with tension, while the Zephyrian advisors resonated with frequencies of anticipation and anxiety. Commander Zixith, the Empress called out, please access the Imperial archives and display our civilization's artistic output over the past millennium. The chamber's walls suddenly came alive with holographic displays showing thousands of years of Zephyrian art. Marcus gasped at the beauty of it, crystalline. Sculptures that seemed to capture starlight itself, music that created visible patterns in the air, architectural marvels that defied physics. Magnificent, the Empress said, but observe the patterns. As the display continued, Marcus began to see what she meant. The art was indeed beautiful, but it followed predictable patterns. The sculptures became more refined but less surprising. The music became more complex but less emotionally stirring. The architecture became more impressive but less innovative. Each generation perfected the techniques of the previous generation, the Empress continued. We achieved technical mastery that surpasses anything in the known galaxy. But when did we last create something that made us weep? When did we last build something that defied our own expectations? Advisor Kethra's form flickered with muted colors. Majesty, surely refinement of established forms is the mark of advanced civilization. Or the mark of dying imagination, she replied. Commander Zixith, now display human artistic development over the same period. The holographic display shifted to show human art from across their 3 centuries in space. Marcus watched with pride as the images revealed the chaotic diversity of human creativity. Wildly different architectural styles from different worlds, music that incorporated alien influences, sculptures that seemed to break every rule of conventional aesthetics. Look at this progression, the Empress said, gesturing to the human display. No clear evolutionary path. No optimization toward perfection. Each world develops its own artistic traditions. Each generation creates forms that would seem alien to their grandparents. It lacks coherence, observed another advisor. It lacks stagnation, the Empress corrected. These humans have been in space for only 3 centuries. Yet their art continues to evolve in directions that remain unpredictable even to themselves. She moved closer to Marcus and Sarah, her towering form somehow conveying both authority and something that might have been hope. You have shown me something I thought lost forever, the possibility of genuine surprise. The chance to create something that has never existed before. Marcus felt a surge of cautious optimism, but he could sense the struggle still raging within the Empress. However, she continued, and his heart sank, I cannot make this decision alone. A choice of this magnitude requires the wisdom of the entire Imperial Council. Commander Zixth stepped forward. Majesty, convening the full council would require several months. Representatives must travel from across the Empire. No, the Empress interrupted, her colors shifting to brilliant gold. This decision cannot wait for bureaucratic procedures. If we are to choose chaos over order, we must begin with a chaotic decision-making process. She activated a communication device that seemed to grow from the chamber's organic walls. Imperial Council, Priority Override Authorization. Empress Prime 1. All members respond immediately for emergency. Session. The chamber filled with holographic projections, as dozens of Zephyrian leaders appeared from across the galaxy. Marcus realized he was witnessing something unprecedented. The most powerful beings in known space gathering for an instant decision that could reshape galactic civilization. Council members, the Empress announced. I present Captain Marcus Chen and Lieutenant Sarah Park of the human species. They have made a proposal that challenges the fundamental principles of our civilization. A chorus of harmonic responses filled the chamber as the council members expressed various degrees of shock, curiosity, and concern. The Empress raised a hand for silence. Rather than present lengthy arguments and detailed analyses, I propose we use a human decision-making method, she continued. Each council member will hear the human proposal, examine their gift, and render an immediate decision based on instinct rather than extensive deliberation. The reaction was immediate and intense. Several council members projected colors of alarm, while others flickered with what might have been excitement. Majesty, came a voice from one of the projections. Such a method abandons millennia of careful deliberative process. Exactly, the Empress replied. If we are to embrace chaos, we must begin by abandoning our attachment to excessive order. She gestured to Marcus. Captain Chen, you have precisely 1 minute to explain your proposal to the assembled leadership of the Zephyrian Empire. No detailed presentations, no supporting data, just the essence of what you offer. Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. 1 minute to change the fate of 2 civilizations. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. Honored council members, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Humanity offers the Zephyrian Empire something you haven't experienced in millennia, the chance to be surprised. He gestured to the music box in the Empress's hands. This simple wooden box contains a song about love and loss, but it also contains something more valuable, the human belief that beauty is worth preserving, even when it serves no practical purpose. We don't offer you better technology or superior military might, he continued, his words flowing faster as precious seconds ticked away. We offer you the chance to create things that have never existed before, to solve problems in ways that defy logic, to experience the joy of discovery rather than the satisfaction of optimization. Your empire has achieved perfection, he said, building to his conclusion. But perfection is the end of growth. We offer you chaos, inefficiency, and unpredictability. We offer you the chance to remain alive. Marcus stepped back, his minute complete. The chamber fell silent as the council members contemplated his words. The Empress wound the key of the music box one final time. As the simple melody of Greensleeves filled the chamber, Marcus watched the council members' crystalline forms begin to resonate with the music, creating harmonics that transformed the ancient human song into something entirely new. Council members, the Empress announced, the decision before us is simple. Do we choose the safety of continued perfection, or do we risk chaos for the chance of continued growth? All in favor of approving the human cultural exchange proposal, resonate at harmony frequency 7. All opposed, resonate at harmony frequency 3. The chamber filled with sound as the council members rendered their verdict. Marcus listened to the competing harmonies, trying to determine which frequency was stronger, but the acoustics of the chamber made it impossible to tell. The resonance continued for nearly a minute before gradually fading to silence. The Empress stood motionless, apparently processing the harmonic voting pattern with some internal sense Marcus couldn't comprehend. When she finally spoke, her voice carried undertones that made Marcus's heart race with anticipation. The council has rendered its decision. The Empress stood in the center of the chamber, her crystalline form cycling through colors Marcus had never seen before. Deep purples shot through with golden light, blues that seemed to contain entire galaxies, reds that pulsed with the rhythm of cosmic heartbeats. The assembled council members' holographic projections waited in perfect silence. "The vote," she announced, her voice carrying harmonics of profound significance, was closer than any in recorded imperial history. Marcus felt his stomach drop. A close vote suggested division, uncertainty, possibly rejection of the proposal. Harmony frequency 7, approval of the human cultural exchange, received resonance from 57% of the council. The Empress paused, her multifaceted eyes seeming to look into the depths of galactic history. In 10,000 years of imperial governance, no proposal has ever been approved with such a narrow margin. Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm, her grip tight with excitement and disbelief. They had won, but barely. "However," the Empress continued, and Marcus's heart sank again, "there is more to consider than simple numerical majorities." She gestured to the holographic projections of the council members. Those who voted against the proposal did so from wisdom earned across millennia of rule. Their concerns are valid and must be addressed. One of the projections, in ancient Zephyrian whose crystalline form was shot through, with veins of deep silver, spoke in harmonics that conveyed both respect and deep concern. "Majesty, we do not oppose change itself, but the pace of this change. To alter the fundamental character of our civilization based on a single encounter seems precipitous." Another council member added, "The humans present compelling arguments, but we have no data on the long-term effects of their chaos-based approaches. What if this experiment destroys both civilizations?" The Empress nodded thoughtfully. "These concerns led me to modify the proposal even as I accept it." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Modified how, Your Majesty?" "We will proceed with the cultural exchange program," she announced, "but we will begin with a single experimental community, one settlement where Zephyrian order and human chaos can interact under carefully controlled conditions." She moved to the chamber's main display, which shifted to show star charts of the local region. "There is a system on the edge of both our territories, a world that neither of our species has claimed. It has the basic requirements for both human and Zephyrian habitation, but it also presents challenges that will require cooperative solutions." The display zoomed in on a planet that looked both beautiful and hostile, vast crystalline formations that glittered like diamonds, but also violent storm systems and unstable geological activity. "Zerion Prime," Commander Zixith said, its form flickering with recognition. "We classified it as unsuitable for standard colonization due to its unpredictable environmental patterns." "Exactly," the Empress said, her colors brightening with what Marcus was learning to recognize as excitement. "A world that cannot be conquered through pure order or pure chaos alone. It will require both approaches working in harmony." Sarah stepped forward, studying the planetary data with obvious fascination. "The crystal formations suggest natural harmonic properties. If we could learn to work with them instead of around them, and the storm systems appear to follow patterns that might be predictable if we had enough data points," Marcus added, his mind already racing with possibilities. "Human adaptability combined with Zephyrian analytical capabilities." "Precisely," the Empress said. "This world will be our laboratory, a place where our species can learn to work together without risking the stability of our established civilizations." One of the council members projected concerned harmonics. "And if the experiment fails? If Zephyrian order and human chaos prove incompatible?" The Empress held up the music box, its simple wooden form somehow managing to dominate the vast chamber's attention. "Then we will have learned something valuable about the nature of existence itself. But if it succeeds," and she trailed off, her form blazing with light that made the chamber's bioluminescent panels seem dim by comparison. If it succeeds, we may discover forms of civilization neither of our species could achieve alone. Marcus felt a surge of emotion that threatened to overwhelm his diplomatic composure. This was more than he had dared hope for, not just acceptance of the proposal, but genuine enthusiasm for its possibilities. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "humanity accepts your modifications. We're honored by this opportunity." "Excellent," the Empress replied. "Commander Zixith will work with your people to establish the initial settlement. We propose equal populations, 1,000 humans and 1,000 Zephyrians to begin with." "That's quite ambitious for a first experiment," Sarah observed. "If we are to test the compatibility of our approaches," the Empress said, "we need sufficient diversity to represent both species' full range of capabilities. Engineers, artists, scientists, philosophers, and yes, comedians." The assembled council members resonated with harmonics that Marcus interpreted as amusement and anticipation. "There is one final matter," the Empress announced, her tone becoming more formal. "This experiment will require a symbol, something that represents the fusion of Zephyrian and human approaches to existence." She approached Marcus, extending the music box toward him. "I propose that this simple gift become the foundation stone of our joint community. A reminder that beauty and meaning can emerge from the most unlikely combinations." Marcus accepted the music box with trembling hands. "Your Majesty, I'm honored, but this belongs to humanity. It was our gift to you. And now it becomes something more," she replied. "A bridge between worlds, a symbol of the chaos and order that created it. When the first buildings of our experimental community are constructed, this music box will be placed in the central plaza, where both Zephyrian precision and human creativity can draw inspiration from its simple message." The holographic council members began to resonate with harmonics of approval and excitement. Marcus realized he was witnessing the birth of something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly cooperative civilization. "The community will be called Harmony," the Empress announced, a name that reflects both the musical inspiration that brought us together and our hope for the future. As the council session concluded and the holographic projections faded, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah the Empress and Commander Zixith in the vast chamber. The weight of what had just occurred was beginning to sink in. "Captain Chen," the Empress said, her voice carrying harmonics of warmth and anticipation, "when you brought that simple wooden box to my court, did you imagine it would reshape the future of galactic civilization?" Marcus looked down at the music box in his hands, its carved figures frozen in their eternal dance. "Your Majesty, I hoped it would show you something about humanity. I never imagined it would show us both something about the nature of life itself. Perhaps that is the most human thing of all," she replied, her crystalline form shimmering with colors of deep contentment. "The ability to create consequences far beyond your intentions, and to embrace those consequences as opportunities rather than disasters." As they prepared to leave the chamber, the Empress wound the music box one final time. The familiar melody of Greensleeves filled the space, but now it was joined by harmonic resonances from the Zephyrian architecture itself. The ancient human song was transformed into something entirely new, neither purely human nor purely Zephyrian, but something unprecedented and beautiful. Marcus smiled as he listened to the hybrid music. It was chaotic and ordered, ancient and innovative, familiar and surprising all at once. It was, he realized, exactly what the future would sound like. The gift had accomplished far more than anyone had dreamed. It had not just opened diplomatic relations between two species, it had opened the possibility of entirely new forms of existence. And it had all begun with a simple wooden box that played an old song about love, loss, and the stubborn human belief that beauty was worth preserving. As they walked back toward the docking bay, Marcus could hear the music box's melody still echoing through the ship's corridors, joined by the resonant harmonics of thousands of Zephyrians who had never heard anything quite like it before. The sound followed them all the way to their shuttle, a bridge of music connecting two civilizations that had chosen hope over fear, growth over stagnation, and the beautiful uncertainty of chaos over the sterile certainty of perfection. The real adventure was just beginning,